Kansas is very bad on the road. They lose again, this time to a rival K-State. We recap the game on this episode of Locked On Jayhawks.
You are Locked On Jayhawks, your daily podcast on the Kansas Jayhawks, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
I'm Derek Johnson. You can hear me as well Monday through Friday from 3 to 6 p.m. on KLWN in Lawrence with Rock Chalk Sports Talk, at least through the rest of this week. Thanks for making Locked On Jayhawks your first listen every day. We are free and available anywhere you get your podcasts, including on our YouTube page where you can like and subscribe to the show. On today's edition of the show, Kansas's road struggles continue. They dropped to 1-4 on the road in Big 12 play, and this time to Kansas State in overtime. We recap the game, what went wrong for KU, what this loss means, go to the game, who stepped up, who did not, and what's next for KU men's basketball. First, this episode of the show is brought to you by FanDuel Sportsbook. Make every moment more. New customers join today, and you'll get $200 in bonus bets if your first bet of $5 or more wins. Visit FanDuel.com/lockedon to get started. So obviously this feels like you took 2 steps forward with the Houston win, 1 step back with this one. It doesn't completely erase what you did in the Houston game, but it certainly makes it not as, I guess, enjoyable or good of a taste in your mouth, and makes it a little bit less meaningful, because to win the Big 12, as we kind of talked about, yes, it's very important to beat some of the other good teams, which you did against Houston. But the true test of when Kansas wins the Big 12 is they're more consistent than the other schools. They win the road games. They go 4-5 on the road. They go 5-4 on the road, right? 6-3 on the road. Well, you're already 1-4 on the road. So you got to win out on the road, which includes difficult games at Texas Tech, at Oklahoma, which both those are top 35 teams in the country, at Baylor, top 20 team in the country, and at Houston, the top 5 team in the country. So good luck doing that. Kansas just plain sucks on the road right now. And it's kind of mind-blowing why that would be, because typically what you would correlate with being bad on the road is like you're a young team. You don't know how to handle the road environment. Kansas is a veteran-filled team. So why is this happening for KU? These are the games you got to win if you want to win the Big 12, and they just can't right now. And as great as the Houston offensive game was, this was the complete opposite, right? Everything was falling for you. Execution was crisp and perfect against Houston. And this game against Kansas State, not so much. And it's crazy, because if you would have told me coming into the game that KU would win points in the paint 38-30, points off turnovers 21-8, they would have 7 less turnovers overall. They would lead fast break points 16-9, and they would have 21 assists. I thought they would have been fine and would have won this one on the road. And Kansas got up 41-30. And at that point, you have the close first half. Second half, you come out, you have that great start. And then you give up a couple like Tyler Perry threes and buckets. You let them back in the game. You go on a bit of a scoring spell yourself, and you just can't get the stops, and all of a sudden you let them back in the game, and from there it's wide open. You had a chance to kind of put your foot on the throat, maybe get it up a little bit more, and you weren't able to do so. But that also means, because Kansas got to the 41-point mark with 17:23 to go in the game, that means that they scored only 29 points over the final 22 minutes and 23 seconds of the game between the end of the second half and overtime, which is, if you're wondering, okay, what does that pace out to be? If that were, say, a 40-minute game, that would only be 51 points in a game, especially after what they just did in the game against Houston. You just could not buy a bucket. You didn't do the little things, though, either, to kind of grind one out. You did win the turnover battle. That is one of those little things that you did at least well, 16-9 there. But you didn't do the other things beyond that to kind of grind it out. And that's typically, when we're talking about like Bill Self, his favorite wins that he has, it is the ones where you're not shooting the ball well, where the ball is not going in the basket, where you're not having your best offensive game, but you find a way to win at all costs, right? And maybe the best team that Bill Self had at doing that was that 2011 to 2012 team. It wasn't always the prettiest thing in the world. They didn't have a super deep bench with, T-Rob, and you got basically a 6-man rotation. You got Justin Wesley, who's basically a walk-on transfer in from Lamar, is coming off the bench as like your 7th or 8th man, right? That team didn't have a bench. This one doesn't have a bench. but that team was able to win ugly consistently. And this team is still trying to figure that out. And maybe this team is not built in that same way, because maybe that one is more of filled of tough grinders and defensive guys. And maybe this one is just a little bit differently. And that's not, something that can be in the cards for this one, and they need to win in a different way. And that's fine. But that is what typical Bill Self teams do. They win these grind out games. And think about some of the grind out ugly games KU has had. They're not winning them, like the UCF game would have classified in this. Like that West Virginia and Iowa State, they shot so well, like that's kind of a little bit different, but like this one would certainly classify in that same arc. And so you mix in some, maybe a little bit of crap luck, which is going to tend to happen to you when you're playing on the road. Like how'd that one tip in go in where it felt like it was off you? The one shot by Tyler Perry, like at the end of the shot clock buzzer, I don't know, that's skill on him. He's a good player, but a little bit of crap luck with that going in. Them getting hot from three, there's a little bit of crap luck in that. Then again, we kind of knew that would happen, right? Tyler Perry and Cam Carter came in, a combined 32% from three. They went 7 of 17 or 41%. And the more this continues to go on, the more I am starting to have questions. Is Kansas doing something wrong on the defensive end, even though there is some maybe negative luck or reversion there? Nonetheless, they hit more threes, just those two guys, than KU did as a team. In fact, they more than doubled up. Just those two guys more than doubled up what Kansas did from three-point shooting. There was the rebounding woes. KU was out-rebounded 43-33. They gave up 2 more second chance points. So many missed key free throws for Kansas, especially by your guy, right? You're counting on Kevin McCullar as your veteran player. You're counting on him to be able to hit key free throws on the road, right? Missed layups. How many missed layups did Kansas have? Well, I have the number for you. 14 of them is the official number of the amount of missed layups for KU. The bench is still a very, very real issue for Kansas, and it had to play more in the first half and overall for the game because of some of the foul trouble, which was a recipe for bad things to happen. And then you have poor play in late possessions of both halves. And that's what's frustrating too. You go back to last year's game in Manhattan. Remember, KU struggled to execute down the stretch. They had some opportunities. There was the timeout play. There was they didn't even get a shot off on the last play of I think regulation and overtime. So you have some poor play late in the halves, where the end of the first half you miss a layup out in transition. The end of the second half you did execute the one dunk play, but just in key moments before maybe your last possession, you're not executing well in some of those key moments. And there's your formula for getting beat on the road. There's your formula for losing on the road to what is currently a non-NCAA tournament team. I don't know, maybe after this win, this will pop them back on the right side of the bubble. But that's if K-State is not an NCAA tournament team, because right now UCF's not, West Virginia clearly not, that would mean you have 3 of your road losses of the 4 are to non-NCAA tournament teams. Now, I guess the one positive, NCAA tournament games aren't on the road. They're not at home either, though, and sometimes they can't have kind of a road environment. I guess you could also, I made some comparisons that Houston win on Saturday. After the game, I said, reminded me a lot of the 2022 victory over Baylor when you blew out a really good opponent who ended up getting a 1 seed, competed with you for the Big 12 title, and you ended up getting that blowout win after you had some questions at the end of January, and that was important to show what the team's ceiling was. But we forget that 2 games later, on a big Monday, on the road, KU lost the silly game that they shouldn't have lost at Texas. I think Trey Mitchell banked in a 3 or something like that, and some weird stuff happened. Maybe this is like that if you want to look at it glass half full. Then again, that team at that point, that was only their second Big 12 loss. They're 8-2. This team's 6-4. Maybe this Big 12 is a little bit different. I don't know. Do with that comp what you will. At the end of the day, you can still accomplish a lot this season, regardless of if you win the league or not. And you can still win the league, to be clear, too. At the end of the day, even after as frustrating as this is in the road struggles, you're only 1 back in the loss column of first. But unless things completely turn on the road, that's not going to happen. And beyond that, KU just keeps losing to K-State in sports. And obviously that's not fun, and that sticks in your craw. And I know there's the cliche that they care more, and when KU's playing K-State, that this is their Super Bowl. You hear that all the time from KU fans, and I think sometimes it's used as kind of a disarming statement, and sometimes as a statement to try to make fun of your rival and little brother and stuff like that. But I'll say this: you can tell who cares a lot in this rival, and if the alternative is, hey, I'm going to get made fun of for how much I care about beating my rival, but we're going to win the game, I know which side I'm taking there. So figure out a way. I don't know. This is just frustrating. You think of the football loss and the 2 basketball losses in Manhattan and the way that you've lost some of these games. You lose. I think they got swept in baseball. All these things. I don't know what it is. It certainly gets a little bit frustrating, and I think a lot of KU fans would certainly agree with that. All right, let's continue on with our GOATs of the game, good and bad, on this episode of Locked On Jayhawks. First, this episode of the show is brought to you by FanDuel Sportsbook. Happy Super Bowl to all who celebrate from FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. If you're like me, Super Bowl Sunday is all about scoring the best seat on the couch, grabbing your favorite football snack, placing some super bets, and maybe even just indulging in the commercials or whatever else is going on. A little bit different when you're watching with the Chiefs in there. Maybe commercial time is now about, going to place your bets or going to refill your food or drink or whatever it is. But FanDuel has so many ways for you to end the season with a dub or 2 or 3 or however many you want, as long as you gamble responsibly. Not only can you bet on who will win Super Bowl 58, but FanDuel also has bets for which players will score a touchdown, how many points will be scored, and so much more. New customers join today, and you'll get $200 in bonus bets if your first bet of $5 or more wins. Just visit FanDuel.com/lockedon to sign up. That is FanDuel.com/lockedon. Make every moment more with FanDuel, an official sportsbook partner of the NFL. On to our GOATs of the game. Good GOATs here. Let's start with Dajuan Harris. Dajuan Harris played an excellent game. I thought this was Dajuan's best game of Big 12 play. He ended up with 15 points on 5 of 10 from the floor, 8 assists, 2 rebounds, 2 steals, 1 block. He played 43 minutes of action. Of be honest, I thought he was KU's best player on the floor in this game. I mean, think about some of the defensive plays he made where he was able to get a steal or poke a ball off somebody out of bounds on Kansas State. The passing, the scoring was there. And I think he missed his first 2 or 3 shots of the game. So from then on, he was kind of locked in, even shooting the ball too. This becomes just the second game in Dajuan Harris's career that he scores double figures and they lose. The other one, Arkansas, this one to your rival on the road. So that tells you that even the 2 losses are games that easily could have gone the other way. Then again, it also is a little frustrating when and where those 2 losses are. But Dajuan was really good overall in this game. And honestly, you look back to it, I think he's had a nice little run of play now. You're probably looking at about 2 or 3 weeks where he's looked like old Dajuan. Hunter Dickinson gets a good GOAT. 21 points, 12 rebounds, another double-double for him, 2 assists, 1 block, 1 steal. He easily could have had more points. How many shots did he have where it was felt like it was halfway down? I think it was 2 from the block. Both of his threes felt like they were right there and they just kind of rimmed out. And I know it's frustrating when you see a guy continuing to shoot threes and they're not going in. I think he's one of his last 17 or something like that. But the process is right. We saw what it was like early in the season that he can hit those shots. He was shooting 60% through non-con play. And it's not like those were air balls that he shot against K-State. They were halfway down and out. I think he's got to keep shooting because Kansas needs him for 3-point volume in the same way they need everybody who shoots their threes. They don't shoot a lot of them. They don't make a lot of them. They need Hunter to make 1 or 2 every game. And so I think you got to just kind of keep shooting them. But overall, he had a good game. And in a game where Kansas wasn't really able to do much offensively, he at least provided a nice little spark on that end. KJ Adams gets a good GOAT here. 13 points, 4 assists, only 2 rebounds. So again, that's something that you want to kind of point out and be like, could that number go up a little bit, especially in a game where you weren't great on the glass? So yes, point valid there. But also had 4 steals. It was his, honestly, second straight year. Remember last year he fouled out of the game in Manhattan too, and there were a couple calls where it was those are nickel dimers. I don't know about that. That's how this one felt too. Felt like he kind of got screwed over a little bit by the whistle in Manhattan back-to-back years, but I thought he still played a good game for KU. He obviously had the dunk that tied it and eventually sent it into overtime. Fouled out in overtime though, and then anytime you're bringing on a player from the bench for KU, that is not going to help any causes. Turnover battle gets a good GOAT here. KU had 7 less turnovers. That was nice to see after the Houston game when they had 3 turnovers. You had 18. You wanted to see if you could force more. You wanted to see if you could stop having them yourself. And yes, there's still going to be some that are oh, that was dumb. Why did that happen? Why did this happen? And there is a little bit of human nature in that, but I don't know. 7 less turnovers. You take that each and every time. For the bad GOATs, Johnny Furphy. This was a definite reminder that Johnny Furphy is a freshman. He only had 4 points on 2 of 7 shooting, 0 of 4 from 3, 4 rebounds, 4 fouls. He struggled on defense, gave up a couple drives, maybe fouled the guy. He obviously missed the box out toward the end of the game on the airballed missed mid-range shot by Tyler Perry, then ended up leading to a stick back. I think it was by Kaluma. And that's now 2 games of your road losses with that one and the West Virginia one where Furphy is by making the addition of adding him over Marco Jackson in the starting lineup. One of the other things that goes up for you beyond 3-point shooting in the offense is rebounding. Furphy is a better rebounder than Marco, but in a couple of key moments, he's missed the box out, and that certainly hurts you. Now, boxing out, I had somebody message or reply to me on Twitter about this. Boxing out on air balls is a hard task. It is a little bit different. And so, yes, that is a valid point, but I don't know. It still stands a little bit. And yes, it was just a reminder that he's still a freshman. Like, he's not perfect. He's going to have some ups and downs. And I've kind of talked about before, like, I know a lot of people are saying that, oh, he's popping up on NBA draft boards. And you know, I can see it, and I can see why. But I remember some of that conversation happening when Ochai ripped his red shirt off and having a couple good games early, and then maybe dipping down a little bit, and then again going up to like having like a 20-point game against Texas or something like that. People having those conversations. He ended up being a 4-year player. I'm not saying Johnny Furphy's going to be a 4-year player, but I am pumping the brakes on the NBA draft stuff. And I think you saw a little bit more why today. He's not somebody who is perfect on the defensive end. He's not somebody who really can create his shot yet. And I think those are things that would make a lot of sense to come back for next year. But anyway, that's conversation for another day. Kevin McCullar gets a bad goat here. And, you know, 15 points, 6 rebounds, 6 assists, 4 steals. He impacted the game in a lot of ways, and some of the totals, and, you know, good passing game, good stealing game, all that stuff. But you go 6 of 18 from the floor. You go 1 of 5 on free throws. That's what really kills you. And it's specifically the free throws and the layup at the end of the first half, right? If you make the layup at the end of the first half, I know it's impossible to know the butterfly effect of how does that affect the game from then on, like the game management and how teams approach it from then on. But it's easy to be like, hey, game was tied at the end of regulation. Those 2 points would have been nice, right? And also, you missed both free throws on one of the trips earlier, right? So if you even go 1 of 2 there, then the 1 and 1 at the end of the game, maybe there's a little bit less pressure there. Maybe in your mind, you're not thinking about, oh, I have to make 2. Maybe you're just thinking, I just got to make 1. We're going to be good. I do that all the time, right? And I know he missed the first. So again, it's kind of procedural, and who knows how that all works. But that's very rough. And the thing that makes it the toughest is he's the guy you're supposed to count on in those situations. And for it just to not go in and to not have that, I guess, kind of isolation, last minute, last second shot type of guy right now on this team, it's definitely tough. The bench gets a bad goat here. Elmarco Jackson plus Parker Brown plus Nick Timberlake played 21 minutes combined, 2 points, 6 rebounds, 0 assists, 2 turnovers, 2 fouls. So I guess good rebounding numbers, but everything else on there, not so good. Elmarco did hit that 1 shot, but also he had that really bad bricked mid-range shot. Just continually not really getting much from the bench. And it'll be interesting with the NCAA tournament. I've kind of said all along, I think this team is built better for the tournament than they are for the regular season because of the lack of depth, because of the lack of bench. And you're going to have longer TV timeouts. But here's the thing. If you don't get like a good seed, Kansas is very dependent on getting a good enough seed to where they're playing a bad team in the first round, basically. Because as we saw in this game, quick turnaround, 1 day between games, 2 days between games, however you want to view it, right? Playing Saturday to Monday, that'll be the same as in the NCAA tournament when you're playing Thursday to Saturday or Friday to Sunday. And with the lack of depth, that affects you more for that second game in the turnaround. But if Kansas gets a 1 or 2 seed and plays some crappy team and beats them by 20, 30 points, and starters only have to play 28, 30 minutes, maybe that can help you there. But if you end up getting a 3 seed or a 4 seed and you're playing some, good little underdog school and you really have to stress the starters a little bit longer into the game, does that make them more prone in the second game? Maybe the depth could come into play in a negative way there. The layups get a bad goat here. I mentioned earlier, 14 missed layups. They were 14 of 28. How many of them felt like they were halfway down and just popped out? And that's frustrating. That's going to happen to you on some occasions. You just hope it doesn't come back to haunt you in a key moment like it did for the 2007 team in the Elite Eight where they missed 1 billion layups against UCLA. And that's something where it's like, I don't even know if that's like, the process is right. You were getting layups, which are supposed to be good shots. I don't know if you need to be tougher. I don't know if it's just crap luck or what it is, but certainly the layups were an issue for KU today. All other forms of shooting, though, that's the problem, were an issue as well. They were 3 of 15 from 3. I think the last made 3 was with like 2 minutes into the second half. So you're getting nothing from the perimeter for the final 23 minutes, basically, of the game. You weren't hitting really mid-range. You weren't really hitting anything in this game. The offense was just kind of stuck in the mud. And then rebounding, -10 in the rebounding battle for KU against K-State. I think Kansas State ended up with 9 offensive rebounds, whereas Kansas ended up with 6 offensive rebounds. So, not a huge difference there. If you go by rebound rate for Kansas in this one, this was their second worst offensive rebound rate game of the season. The other ones on there are Tennessee, West Virginia, UConn, and Oklahoma State, for what it's worth. And then for the defensive rebound number, this was more of a, I guess, kind of middle of the pack game for them in terms of the defensive rebounding number. So not a great defensive rebounding game, or I guess an average defensive rebounding game, not a great overall rebounding game with the offensive rebounds for KU. Let's finish up what's next for KU. How can they try to get the taste out of their mouth on this episode of Locked On Jayhawks? What's next for KU? First, we are brought to you by eBay Motors. Passion, drive, and patience. What brings home that winning trophy is also what keeps your ride or die alive. eBay Motors has everything you need to maintain your vehicle and level it up to peak performance, from superchargers, roof racks, exhaust kits, LED headlights, and more. Whether you're into speed, power, or style, eBay Motors has got you covered. With over 122 million parts for your number one ride or die, you'll always find exactly what you're looking for. And with eBay Guaranteed Fit, your part is guaranteed to fit your ride every time or your money back. Because with eBay Motors, you're burning rubber, not cash. With all the parts you need at the prices you want, it's easy to turn your car into that MVP and bring home that win. Keep your ride or die alive at ebaymotors.com. Eligible items only. Exclusions apply. eBay Guaranteed Fit, only available to U.S. customers. So what's next for KU basketball? And by the way, I will say thank you to every day for tuning in to each and every one of our episodes. If you want to cheer yourself up, go listen to the recap show from the Houston game. Maybe that'll make you feel a little bit better. Go watch some highlights or something. Get ready for the Super Bowl. I don't know. Do something else, whatever it is. I have had this question, by the way. I will be stopping my work at Rock Chalk Sports Talk at the end of this upcoming week. I will be continuing to do this show here with Locked On Jayhawks. So if anybody had that question, which I saw, I had a few people shoot me something on Twitter or something asking about that. So there's your answer to that. But what's next for KU men's basketball? They're going to be versus Baylor. That'll be this Saturday. College game day going to be in town. You know, Kansas has done so well. Bill Self has done so well coming off of losses. Good news is they'll now have a long week off to really work on stuff in practice, to get guys rested up, to get ready for the Baylor game. And now you should have an extra edge from losing this game. So that is the positive for KU. And that certainly becomes a big-time opportunity to get a win. Then after that, it's a 2-road game week, which that sounds a little scary for KU, does it not, with the way that they're struggling on the road? At Texas Tech the following Monday, at Oklahoma the following Saturday. Honestly, the way I'm viewing it, with this next 3 games, Baylor, at Texas Tech, at Oklahoma, win 2 of the 3. Win 2 of the 3, I think you're content with that. I think it keeps you at least in the Big 12 race, at least keeps you in the discussion of being like a 2 seed or maybe even a 1 seed with opportunity if you can win some more games down the stretch. Win all 3, we're really talking something cooking again here for KU. But win at least 2 of the next 3, including holding serve at home against Baylor. A Baylor team that so far has had some big Big 12 or close, tight, late Big 12 losses, including also losing in overtime at Kansas State. They have one of the best offenses in the country, and this will scare KU fans a little bit. They're number 1 in the country in three-point shooting at 41.8%. Then again, it's usually been the teams who don't shoot well from 3 that just go off, so maybe that's actually okay. All right, that'll do it for this episode of Locked On Jayhawks, though. You can find our show anywhere you get your podcast, including on our YouTube page. We'll be joined by Nick Schwert to talk about the road struggles, Johnny Furphy, plenty more on our next episode of LOJ.